turning trash into treasure. That's what we're going to try to do in this new series, where I'm going to be taking the HGUC Tristan Gundam, wildly regarded as a horrible kit, and it's not good, I'll admit that, but we're going to make it better throughout this series. This is going to be a work in progress series leading up to the completion of the kit. I talked about this in the review of the kit. I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to get to this series, but in this series I'm going to be going over customizing this kit, doing a little bit of kit bashing, and these are the kind of things that also I get asked about quite a lot. People are often asking me what are some things to learn for if you wanted to get into customizing and kit bashing, things like that. So hopefully this series will be helpful for you guys. I'm no professional, but I'll just show you what I'm gonna do to make this better. While I agree that the kit as it is not very good, there's definitely a lot of things that you can do to improve it. I'm going to be going over some things that I think will make it look better that I don't think will also be in line or be exactly some of the same choices that you guys might make if you were doing this project, but I'm going to make mine. You guys can take some of those ideas and do maybe whatever you will with them. In just a minute I'll go over some of the stuff that I'm planning on using for this project, but in the meantime I just want to remind you guys that at the end of this I will actually be giving away one of these. So here's a second one. This one's just totally brand new in the box, as well as the HG Balden arms, this one here. So this set, which you can use. I'm actually, admittedly, now that I'm going to be working on the project, I don't think I'm going to actually be using this as much as I originally intended, but I'll talk more about that here in a bit. But anyway, either way, you guys will have that with this and this, so you'll have a chance to win this stuff. Again, at the end of this series, once I'm all done with this, I'll let you guys know how to do that. It'll just be a simple kind of probably like random comment selection or something like that, I suppose. I don't know, I haven't decided quite exactly how to do that. It is going to take me a little while to finish this project. I imagine it'll probably be a series of 7 to 10 work in progress videos, depending on how it goes, depending on how much I can get done in a relative short amount of time. So for this first video, I'll basically just be going over some of my plans for this kit. I have most of a plan, which is good. It's important to have a plan. That's kind of the first step before you're going into something where you're going to be doing some customizing or something like that. So I have most of a plan. There's still some other stuff that I think I'll figure out along the way and as we go, and it's kind of a lot more to do with like the kind of weapons and accessory kind of stuff anyway, so that'll be later. I'm going to focus on the Gundam itself first. So for this first video, I'll just talk to you guys a little bit about some of my ideas and we'll get started on some of the modifications. So let's get to it. Alright, so like I said, the first thing that we need to do before we get to work is make a plan. So that's what I've done, basically just taken some notes here, kind of going over some of the ideas that I have for different modifications, things that I want to do on this. So basically what I did is just like look at photos of the kits, look at the kit a lot, just kind of take some stuff apart, put some stuff back together, look at more photos of the kits. That's looking at other people's builds. I've taken a look a lot at like other Japanese builders and people who have been building it and modifying it like on Twitter, and also just like looking at just the photos of the kit using Dalong. Again, even though I have the kit and I can look directly at it, just looking at photos of the kit I think helps a lot. So I looked at the photos on dalong.net a lot. Again, if you guys aren't aware of that site, I'll put the link for that site down below as a resource. It's an excellent resource just for looking at photos and just kind of brainstorming things. So yeah, I went through and thought about some mods that I want to make for it, and so before we get into that, I'll also show you some of the other stuff. My other idea for basically this kit is kind of inspired by Solomon Express. So Solomon Express was just like I think just a photo novel, basically just like a series of illustrations that are official. They're canon, I guess, as far as I know. But there's not really any anime, of course, or even a manga as far as I know. So it's just a series of designs, but they're kind of really interesting designs, kind of focused on having like really large, just really over-the-top weapons and accessories. So I'm gonna go large with this, and I've got this thing here. You guys saw me do a review video for this. It's just the freestyle bazooka. Just looks like that. Now I'm not sure if I'll end up keeping the beam rifle of the Tristan and doing anything with that. If anything, maybe putting it on the back skirt or something like that later, just to kind of keep it around. I like the beam rifle well enough. I mean, even though it is molded all in white, I'm going to be painting it, of course, so it doesn't really matter. So I don't know if I'll end up using this in the final kit or not, but the main weapon is going to be the freestyle bazooka here. So it doesn't actually fit into the hand as is, but it will be just handheld and then just up over the shoulder like that. So you can just see the general height of it is it's very large. It's about the same height as the Gundam itself. So it's going to be big and over the shoulder like that. So it'll have that. And then if you saw in the review, I talked about how I really hate this shield. I just don't like the design of the shield at all. I don't think that it looks good. So I'm not going to use this at all. And what I think I'm going to use is this shield. This is just some leftover parts from, if I remember correctly, that was the Heavy Gundam, I believe, that just had some extra parts here. Basically, almost all the parts to make a shield like that, but it's just missing the inside part, so I'll have to do something about that. Worst comes to worst, I can just use this connection piece inside here. I'll be using a different arm connection though, so again, this is something I'll have to figure out more exactly later, but using this big shield, I'll probably get rid of the cross and just putty that and just make it just flat on there, so it won't have that design on it, and it'll just have a big shield and a big old gun like that. So that'll be its kind of big accessories. And then I got these. So these are just like makeup bottles. You can see these were 1,000 yen each, so that's like $1. These are just from a dollar store, Daiso. If you guys have ever been to Korea or Japan, you may have been to Daiso. Daiso is basically our version of the dollar store. And these are going to be fuel tanks. So obviously they're like spray canisters, something as they are now, but I'm just going to paint them and repurpose them as fuel tanks. So this idea was actually taken from another builder, who is actually Korean, and he posts a lot on Facebook and Instagram, things like that. So these were just basically cylindrical shapes that I can use. I have two of them. I'm not sure if I'll end up using two or just one. They're pretty big, but I think I want to have them like this, just two on the sides like that. That is quite to the style of Solomon Express. Or if I want to go unicorn style and just have like one straight out the back. Haven't quite decided yet about that, but again, that's something I'll figure out a little bit later. Of course, I've got a bunch of different vent option parts and things like that that I'll be using. I'll show you how I'm going to be using those later as well. And of course, the Balden arm set. Now, what I originally got this set for was to use as replacements for the joints. Unfortunately, when I wanted to try them out, I just don't really think that they'll be a good fit for this kit. So they're kind of too big for the elbow joints and too small for the knee joints, so they're really not going to be able to work for this kit. I think for other kits they might work, but just for the look and style of this kit, I think they're just not going to work in that way. I'll still probably use some parts of this. I'm planning on using at least the missile pod. My plan is here to get rid of the beam saber. Probably, like I said, I'm still figuring out the backpack, but get rid of the beam saber on this side and replace that with a missile pod there. So it's just one beam saber and then one missile pod over the shoulder. So, and then I'll probably use some of these joint parts and things like that for just adding the fuel tanks onto the backpack. These parts will probably come in handy for that as well. So we'll see how I end up using those. I do feel kind of disappointed because I basically introduced the project before, how I just wanted to take this kit and these parts and do the best that I can with this, and then that could be possible, and I could have stuck to that original thing, and I feel like if I don't stick to that plan, that like I'm almost kind of like going back on my word to you guys or something like that. But after actually like trying this out, I just, like I said, I didn't think that those were going to be as useful for the joints as I originally thought. So then I started thinking about what else I could do to kit bash this. So my first thought was actually the the high grade Revive Gundam Mark II. Tried that out and I thought, okay, this can work. And then I reviewed the new HGUC Blue Destiny, and I thought just wasn't really too big of a fan of that kit, so I really wouldn't mind probably just cannibalizing that kit and using it for parts for this. Then I thought, okay, use parts from the Blue Destiny in this. And then we got this kit, the Jim Jim. Now, a fantastic kit, and really hate to cannibalize it, but it's cheap and it actually is gonna work, I think, better than the Blue Destiny for what I have in mind. So basically what I'm gonna be doing is kit bashing some parts from the Jim Jim and using them for the Tristan. So I know this video so far has already just been a lot of talking and not a lot of actual work in progress yet, but bear with me. I just want to kind of lay out what my plans are for this kit a little bit so far. So I know I've been doing that, but I'll continue to do that here. Basically planning on just scrapping this entire leg in general. Now, these legs are obviously much more mobile. The Jim Jim's legs are really nicely articulated. What I'm going to do is basically just take these parts of here. So we got the two side parts of the leg, and then the front kneecap is basically what I'll cut. This whole front part of this leg is all one piece, from the top to the bottom. Probably just cut that off at the knee, replace this kneecap here, just replace that, and then these side parts actually will fit just plugging onto the side. Now I'll probably sand down this round part at the side of the cap a bit, but then that's going to be covered by these parts. So again, we'll talk more about that later, but basically it's just taking these parts of the leg and making them fit around this leg. So that will just give us not only a more mobile leg, but also just a better looking leg than these, which are a little bit short and stumpy. So speaking of short and stumpy, we're also going to make these thighs bigger. So my plan is to make them a little bit longer, as well as making them a little bit thicker. So these thighs are also going to be modified as well. And the feet, I think this will probably be the most controversial part of this build. If you take a look at the feet, they're actually very similar in their shape, except that the Tristans are much, much larger. Personally, I kind of prefer the smaller feet, although for this build, because it's going to be pretty bulky and with pretty large weapons, I think the small feet might end up looking too small. But I'm gonna take a chance and use the small feet anyway. So I'm not gonna use these big feet. What I was originally planning on doing is using these, but just making them a little bit smaller. Just cut them down the middle and make them a little bit narrower, and then just kind of reshape them a little bit to make them a little bit smaller. I might still end up doing that. I haven't quite decided yet, but for the meantime, I'm thinking I really like these small feet. Now again, that's just my personal taste. I know a lot of people aren't gonna like that, because I know a lot of people have thought that the feet on this kit are too small. Personally, I like it, but we'll have to see. As for the arms, it's gonna pretty much go exactly the same as the legs. I'm planning on using pretty much all of the Jim's arm from the bicep down, but for the lower arm here, I'll just kind of be sanding and reshaping this lower arm a little bit to then be able to take parts from this and then add them onto here to just build out the arm. So it still has the same general shapes, but it will be a much nicer and much more mobile arm. So I'll still use the shoulder pads from the Tristan and the torso from the Tristan, all the waist parts from the Tristan, obviously the head, the backpack from the Tristan. So here, basically all of this will just be modified. It won't be replaced with anything. And as for the arms and legs, I'll just be chopping those up and bashing those with the Jim. One last thing that this kit needs is some Jig and Build Knuckles Kaku. This was actually really hard to find, so shout out to my friend there, Ricardo, in Tokyo, for helping me get this set. He was nice enough to send this to me. And yeah, apparently Bandai hasn't done a run of these for a while because they're pretty much completely sold out everywhere here in Korea. The only ones that I could find here in Korea were imports from Japan, so it would pretty much cost the same as just ordering them directly through a Japanese seller. So I'll be using these hands for the kit. Much nicer, much better looking hands, of course, than the ones that are included with the Tristan. So that is the general idea of what I'm going to be doing for this build. Now I'm also going to be adding details, doing some scribing on this, adding some detail parts, doing some more extensions. I've shown actually limb extension before in the past, but I will be covering that again in this one. But something that I haven't done in the past is a torso extension. So it's pretty simple. It's basically the exact same kind of situation, but I'll be showing you guys how to also extend the torso a little bit, because this little short stocky torso is just not going to work. Also going to be replacing some of these vents in the shoulder, vents on the top of the chest, vents probably on the back here as well, and then we'll be doing some work on the backpack as well. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do. I'm looking forward to this project, so I hope you guys are too. Now, finally, let's get to work.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.